Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is ManyNinjas with the second part of the Downtown Special Series, where at this point we got all the key items you really need in order to proceed. The next step will be to, well, after turning on missing techniques here, the next step is to progress with the rest of the story mode, which is to visit exotic locations, find new and interesting people, and punch and kick them, so we can build up our stats in order to better improve our ability to punch and kick people. And let's see, well, thankfully the next storyline related item is somewhere within the Soraya region, so let's see if there are really 4 areas here, so if they're not in town, then they gotta be just over, okay, not there. Alright, well, if they're not down here either, that leaves just one more hilly area, or hilled area that, is not too far from here. Let's see, yep, no, they're still in Suraga. So that leaves going backwards, using the map cursor as a shortcut. And here we go with the next gang of the game. Well, I beat up this generic gang here for the most part, and try to keep Rookie alive for a little longer. Just to go over something that I might have not mentioned the first time around. In this particular game, if you're playing it, and odds are you're playing it on an emulator, because there is no English equivalent, and otherwise you'd have to have the original Famicom card, which of course would have been all Japanese. Odds are you probably would have noticed that the game actually suffers from quite a bit of slowdown when you have any kind of a gang encounter, especially if you happen to have your partner still alive at the time. Part of the reason is because there's just so much going on with all the moving characters and all the moving parts in the game that it needs to touch bit in order to kind of catch up or kind of keep track of everything. And of course, because of the similar issue of just being too much going on, you'll also would have noticed that there's quite a bit of sprite flickering that has to occur in order to keep everything viable. Even like right there would have been a bit more noticeable. I'm not sure how much of it exactly shows up on the recording, although right now with everyone overlapping, it would have been much more obvious. However, with Ricky gone now at this point, the slowdown would have actually reduced quite a bit because now we're close to what we would have been dealing with the original RCR. Part of the reason why they didn't have so many people hanging around on any given stage at any point, in order to just keep things a bit more simplistic. Although now that I think about it, yeah, there's still quite a bit of flickering going on at this point with even just the 3 moving characters at the moment. Another thing which they would have done in this game in order to just try to save some memory is, if you probably noticed, just like RCR, everyone has the same generic body type. Part of the reason is just because it gives the engine less to load up, which makes things a bit easier. But the second part also being that since your allies can also learn the same general moves that you can if you give them the sort of technique items for it, that means you have to have a generic body so everyone can potentially do every single move possible. And that's probably the big reason for it. By the time something like RCRX came along, flickering was pretty much a thing of the past there because the GBA system was a lot more efficient at that point. Although, quite frankly, stuck with the idea of keeping everyone with the same general body type for the most part, just because of the fact your allies could learn, or you could learn a bunch of the same moves there, and it just kept things easier to go along. Alright, in this case, I know Jinro is RCR equivalent, would have been one of the last zombies off the top of my head, and unfortunately one of the harder hitting ones for that matter, but I just can't remember the name of that one right off the top of my head. Okay, he's actually hitting pretty hard there. He's got the equivalent... That's not the hyper guard, it's the drill attack. Yeah, that's the name I'm looking for. And he's kicking my ass. So, in instances like this with your partner gone, if you have anything that you can use to hit someone hard and just knock them down for a while, you want to use it. If you have something that will keep them at a distance, like if I had the Mach weapon, it could probably be really useful there. But thankfully enough, the kicks stat was powered up enough that all the tornado kicks worked pretty well. And oh, I forgot, after winning this one, you have the option of adding one more playable ally to go along with you, being one of the earlier bosses you came across, and what would also have been in RCR, one of the zombies. So that's just kind of there. Ricky's now back, has some health to work with. Because I'm so low on health with Kuno, I need to take a rest in order to get everything back up. Oh, worth mentioning, although the inn restores all of your health and vitality there, unfortunately it does not do the same for your partner. We now have the drill for ourselves, so yes, let's turn it on there. it's actually, once you power up some of the stats, it's just a really good way to just kind of reflect damage a bit, as well as it's a kind of a really cheap way to hit grounded opponents for quite a bit of damage on a higher. I can't remember exactly which stat it is off the top of my head, but basically when you build up your stats, like your punch, kick, and throw a bit, it does quite a bit of damage, is what I'm saying. Alright. Oh, here's actually something we need for a story-related bit. After having beat up Yono earlier, he just gives the Campo item, which it won't show up in your actual item list, but it's an important story-based item that once you come back to Bunzo's place, you'll actually unlock one more extra character there, Bunzo himself. So now that gives us one more ally to go along with. Off the top of my head, I think the haircut indicates I think it was Ivan in RCR off the top of my head. Can't recall for sure, but I'm pretty sure it would have been Ivan, aka one of the characters that was guarding the gate for the last high school pretty much at the end game. Alright, just as an aside, in case it does show up in the audio recordings at some later point, if you hear any random noises in the background while I'm doing this whole thing, it's partly due to the fact that in this general area, within this part of the house, we're kind of in the middle of doing assorted renovations at the moment. So it might be picking up. In fact, right now there's a drill going on in the background as some work on one of the bathroom counters is being done. So if you're wondering why there's any weird noises, anything going on within these recordings, now you know why. Another thing about it, seeing that last gang member does remind me. Once again, we have another case of someone that's running around with sunglasses that doesn't belong in this period. I really don't get that for this particular reason. Everyone's gonna have the proper clothing there, the general style of haircut at that period, and yet, assuming this is an actual play and not just kind of an off-world thing, or kind of a side story that is basically what this game really is here. Couldn't they tell the guy just to leave the sunglasses alone for just a little while there? Hell, even if you took this as a play, what play do you have involved where a bunch of people, among their layer, two few characters in the play, are constantly beating the crap out of everyone? What kind of a play is this? Guys, if there's a play like that in real life, I kind of want to see it, I'm gonna be honest here. I don't think I would have wanted to see just not because it was good, but because it was terribly bad. It was maybe something like Spider-Man Turn Off the Lights or something. I think that's the name of it. Whatever the Spider-Man Broadway play was. Just because it's so bad it had to have been good, really. Or it was good for all the wrong reasons. Except for the fact that people kept getting hurt during that thing. That was not so good at all, but the rest, just so comically bad, it was entertaining to my understanding. Speaking of things which happen to be disasters in the making, in case you haven't noticed, most of the characters in this game, or most of the gangs, seem to last a lot longer than they would have in RCR. Part of the reason for that is, as I attempt to get this bucket off my head by finding a safe wall to crash into, but anyway, back to saying, there we go. The reason why is, much like the playable characters, your opponents here, all the enemy gangs, not only have stamina, but also a set of vitality on their own. Which, unfortunately, means you have to not only beat down the stamina, you have to knock them out entirely of all their vitality there, in order to get it so it's completely zero and they're absolutely dead. Much like they would have had to beat you up entirely in order to get you out of the way and cause your character to basically get knocked out. And crap. In case I didn't mention earlier, which I'm pretty sure I did, this is really one of those areas you don't want to fight any gangs just because of how many possible exits there are. I ran out accidentally and hit up during a scrolling bit of one of the exits, putting me into another part of the town, so I'm no longer fighting the actual story mode, or the next story mode gang, but just another generic case of the frat boys. Oh, well, at least on the bright side, since this gang does regenerate there, I can just beat up a bunch of them and get a little more level up that way and build up the stats a bit more, so it isn't a complete waste of my time. It's just generally annoying. Even with the map cursor, just because of the fact you have to chase around your opponents all the time, it does add a bit of extra length to the game. It's not really extra gameplay, it's just the whole chasing around your enemy gang is just really kind of padding the time of how long this game actually takes. It's probably one of the few things, along with just how generally convoluted the assorted entrances and exits of all the areas are, one of the few things I don't actually like about this title. Most of the things make this a really good game, but just generally how you have to chase around your enemies and go through the map are probably the only two things I genuinely don't like. For a short list of some of the things that the game really did do right, one was the introduction of playable allies, which is something that would actually carry on for later entrances in series and later remakes like the RCR-X remake for the Game Boy Advance system. One of the other things being that it's a little easier in order to get new techniques instead of having to literally buy them all. With things like the Master Belt, you can learn them a lot easier, pretty much pick it up from beating up bosses, and certain techniques like the Mach Punches and Mach Weapon, well, Mach Punch, Punch Kick, Mach Weapon, I believe Mach Throw, and some of the other sped up versions of regular attacks can also be learned that way. You can actually learn those just by doing that general series of attacks a bunch of times. So you can pick up things in a more natural format as well. Speaking of things that are a bit more natural, the fact you could build up your general character stats, not just by literally having to buy your way through everything, but by just beating up gang members enough time in order to build things up. So it's a bit more about something along the lines of an experience system. Oddly enough, that's something which, as far as I know, only really lasted on this title. It didn't actually show up in any later games, or at least nothing I've personally played, just to clarify. Stepping back to your allies a bit, not only the fact you can get allies, but the nature of how you can get as well as lose allies are actually character specific. Well, not character specific, they're story specific. In some cases you have to either have beaten the previous boss, or in some cases pretty much beat a boss or kind of triggered a previous story event in order to make it so you could actually hit a random encounter in order to find some people. And for similar reasons, you can actually have some of those former allies leave at certain points in the title because of something that just went on storyline-wise, which is something that will actually be popping up later. And now the thing about, while I have the growth rate here, the fact that you can actually select at what percentage and how quickly certain stats actually grow over time rather than others. In this case, since I have the double up thing, I'm using that in order to deliberately pump up some stats over others in order to make some of my special moves much more effective. In this case, makes it much easier to pump up stats to the maximum in these titles. It would have been 127. That's pretty helpful because if you have literally left everything at the default percent where everything's growing at like 10% at a time, suffice to say you'd have to be beating up a lot of gangs in order to max out any one particular thing, much less anything that could really help you in a hurry. With something like the Master Shades and Master Belt, whichever it is, I can't quite tell from the icon there, and the assorted double up items, you have a good chance in order to really build up your stats for any one stat, realistically just by going through a few gangs, not even going too crazy within the story mode, and you can build up something to be really hurtful, like what I've been doing with the kicks and a bit of the punches at this point. Either that, or just if you find yourself really struggling due to low stamina or vitality, you can go through a few gangs with those kind of items equipped and really max out your health and vitality, so you can take a bit more of a beating. As I got knocked into a secret shop here. Unfortunately, nothing I need at this point, so let's get back to the battle. Another thing which this game does well over something like RCR is the fact that as much as I gripe about some of the locations there's just a lot more variety in terms of terrain going on. As you can probably notice for this area, there's actually a bit of a movement applied to any characters underwater, as there's an actual current that seems to have been applied there. So anyone that's kind of floating there can be moved along with the current, which can take you in certain other parts, like the section with the waterfall, which I can't remember the name of off the top of my mind. It'll pretty much kind of send you down in a cycle, making it at times easier and harder in order to hit your opponent, but also a bit harder to move overall for everyone. In the red dirt-filled area, that really jumps up the traction for everyone, unless you happen to have the right set of boots to counteract that effect. And on the snowy mountains, it pretty much treats everything like ice terrain, so you'll be slipping and sliding all over the place. Most of this stuff is stuff you didn't actually see in the original RCR title, and unfortunately, at least off the top of my head, other than maybe Riki Kuno, which I can't remember the proper title for that particular fighting game, there really isn't any use of anything like that within other parts of the series off the top of my head. Maybe actually, second thought, maybe on the Super Dodgeball game, but it's just really selective usage. It doesn't really show up too much on any other proper Kunio-Kun beat 'em up as far as I know. And went down ridiculously easy. It was actually quite bad there. It's quite pathetic. But on the bright side, while he makes a terrible boss, he can make an okay ally because you can actually recruit him or add him to your roster over at Suraga itself at Bunzo's place, where he offers to join you with no hard feelings. Now with him out of the way, I'm a bit more beating up the frat boys because it's really the thing to do in order to build up your stats some more. Admittedly, at times it almost feels a little unfair because I imagine that running slap attack basically takes off the equivalent of one of their full vitality bits all at once. So basically, oops, ran off screen. Okay, scroll back there, yeah, they're still there. Just because of the sheer damage it does because of how much the punch stat got bumped up. And of course, since they all have the least defense of any gang in the game, they just get beat up really silly. It's just kind of sad, really. I almost feel bad for doing it, but I kind of want to build up more stats. At least on the bright side in later games, particularly RCRX, there's actually a special treat you can get if you beat up the light blue, aka frat boys gang enough times. And that title, I don't remember, you have to beat him up like a stupid number of times, like a few dozen times off the top of my head. But if you do so, you can actually have a chance. If you haven't already recruited anyone else and you have it as a one-player game, you can effectively recruit the whole frat boys gang and their leader as your playable allies for that bit. On top of having the main gang leader as your official help player, other members of the frat boys will come out and help you along the way. So you basically have a whole gang on your side of your own, even if it is the weakest gang possible. In case you're wondering why I happen to be spending so much time just beating up this one gang a lot, it's realistically, well, as I said, in order to build up the stats a lot more. Just because of how I've changed the growth rate, I've really neglected things like agility, willpower. Vitality's really been ignored at this point. Stamina has some work done to it, but not too much. It can go to a max of 255. I'm only maybe a bit over halfway, maybe. I'd say maybe 2/3 tops of there. And my overall defense for this character is still really low. So I'm basically playing by the gameplay of as long as I can hit you first, I'm probably going to do well. But if I get beat up too much myself, I'm screwed. For the most part though, with the exception of one boss that'll be coming up later in game, it's basically one of the end game level bosses, you tend to get away with it for the most part, so let's go with it. And that was like 170 plus damage on just one tornado. Okay, it really isn't fair to this gang at some point. You almost feel bad for them. The reason I say almost is because apparently they have really good health insurance, which is why they can keep coming back for more and more beatings all the time. And the fact that, well, there are so many of them, I only have one person on my side, and a lot of the time he does stupid things. He's not doing too many stupid things right now because there aren't too many walls to run into right now, but generally he does a lot of stupid things. And I just realized that my punch was completely maxed out at 127, so let's start moving on to the next stat that can really use some building, the kick stat, which will power up things like the Mach Kick, Tornado, and others. Now the thing about just on a base observation here, I can't entirely tell how much of the general gang talk is just kind of recycled things from River City Ransom, basically that English dub brought here, but it can't be entirely from that because of just the fact that otherwise you'd see a lot more cases of someone saying barf, which is something that does not occur in this particular game off the top of my head, as strange as that might sound. Now think about why would they even include that in RCR. I'm 90% sure they never said anything like that in the original translation or the original text there, and it's just one of those weird translation quirks that they ended up throwing in there, which just stuck around for that game in all the later ports of it. It's kind of like how in other games, Kuno ended up getting not one but at least 2 different names off the top of my head, being Alex in RCR, and in Crash and the Boys is Crash Crooney, I think that was his name. It was the same character, but for some reason he has at least 2 North American names off the top of my head, and he probably got another name or used one of those ones again for the Super Dodgeball type. And as you can probably tell if you've seen the North American art, while the original Famicom art shows all the characters in their regular appearance, Kunio-Kun's appearance in the North American art looks drastically different in both of them. In River City Ransom, it's just 2 generic North American tough guys in t-shirts, while in the Crash and the Boys, it's a little closer there, but it's basically like a North American take of a Japanese style illustration there. It's just kind of weird. Another way to kind of compare it is, if you want to get an idea, look at the original artwork for the Rockman series and then look at the North American art. Not so much in the case of the first one, which is bad box art Mega Man, but in basically Mega Man 2 and onward, or really I should say 3 and onward, where you can tell they're looking kind of at how the original ones look like, but it still looks kind of weird. Although now thinking about it, by 5 and 6, it's a little closer to what the original Japanese model was at that point. Although it's just still like a faux 3D deal. Anyway, getting back to the actual game itself, here we have the next progression in Story Gangs. It's still a light gray, so it's kind of the midpoint, one of the midpoint gangs. I don't remember exactly which one. If it was an all-black gang, though, that would be the RCR equivalent of the Mob, which is aka the last gang you really come across. And I can't remember what would be the bosses. I'm pretty sure we've gone past all the different zombie equivalents at this point, except maybe what would have been Thor. Although, was Kinzu Thor? I think so, might have been. Oh well, there's only one way to find out, and that's to beat up more of these guys to go longer. Okay? At this point, although they have a slightly higher defense for this particular gang, because Punch is maxed out the Mach Punch, which, as you remember, was doing originally a piddly one hit point of damage each, is now doing at least 12 per hit. So we're making some progress there. This is marginally as high as that's gonna get, because the stat is maxed out after all. And of course, any other things like that, running slap attack now at least does a reliable triple digit of damage each time. And if you happen to start the attack at the right time, you can slap them multiple times on the ground. Thankfully, as this is an RCRX, we don't have any reputation points to worry about, so you can just be cheap and hit them silly. At this point, I imagine, although I think I've been forgetting to turn on some of this text during this setup, Ricky's at least been gaining quite a few levels along with me here at this point. Even though I don't have too much equipment on him, he should have at least some okay stats at this point. Although he still has a bad habit of dying a lot, or just really getting beaten. Crap! There we go. Okay, run back on, and we're gonna start this fight again. Yeah, at least on the bright side, although it's kind of tedious having to beat him up again. At least gives me the opportunity of at least earning a bit more stats due to the extra experience boost of having to take care of the gang at least one more time. Also at this point, just because of things like the Mach Punch, or in this case Mach Punch 2 is what I have equipped here, they tend to go falling down pretty easy, and when they're down, it's easier to hit them and take off a bunch of their health at once, really. If you're doing something like the running slap attack, though, 1 second, I just need to knock this stupid thing off my head. Okay, there we go. There goes, and a bit of hyperdrive for good measure. You have to really wait for them to stop moving or stop rolling around, because if you hit them with something that's like a running attack, it'll just keep them rolling, and with the sheer momentum, you'll send them rolling off stage, and that's where you can't actually attack anybody. Your partner will be able to do things just fine, since he can safely run in and out of the scene, but you, if you try to pursue, you'll just end up canceling yourself out. And I almost ran off the stage again with that thing. That's one of the few things you need to worry about the slap attack. It just keeps going until the move actually finishes, and even then you'll have momentum carrying you for a little bit. Ouch, that actually hurt. I believe I don't know who took 22 damage there. Fortunately, his vitality is still really high, and with the magic robe, I'll get all that health back sooner rather than later. For the most part, realistically, if you wanted to keep your partner alive a bit more, what you would probably be best off doing, along with giving them stuff like the double up items and the stat boosting, well, technically the double stat boosting items for any kind of equipped items, is just giving them some of the higher end equipment and, of course, giving them more techniques on their own. Since Ricky's been getting quite a few techniques as well, because he's also had the Master Belt on, which, now that I think about it, any partner you have, really all your partners share the same set of equipment, so as long as you have it equipped to any partner at any given time, it'll carry over for the rest of them. Back off that tangent there. Basically, as long as you have a general good set of equipment there, some items can actually stack up in order to really build some of your stats really high, and with something like double up that doubles the worth of the actual items there, so basically anything that would give you 10 extra of like strength, something becomes 20, so on and so forth, and some higher end items that are 30 become like 60 extra. You can keep your opponent or keep your allies alive for a bit longer. I've actually attached something like the magic robe to the ally here, but now that I think about it, I'm not sure. Oh, there's the equivalent of Tex again, but this time he's actually carrying a weapon. As I was saying, I'm not sure if the magic robe actually works for your partner in the same way it works for the playable character. Or at least, if it's been working there, it's been working at a much slower pace, because otherwise Ricky really should have gotten a lot more health by now than he's actually got there. I don't think I've actually ever seen, haven't seen him at this point get any health back on this particular run, but I haven't checked. And down goes Yago or Tex again, in a fairly good fashion. If you didn't get the original version, or didn't get the secret shop version of the dagger special attack, this is the actual point where you could get it for free. Mind you, it's at mid to slightly later in game. I think the midpoint, to be honest, here. And it takes a bit of extra time in order to get to that point. So if you could afford to buy it by doing something like that, kind of abusing the various chance boots that go along the way, why not? Heck, in fact, if you basically have any cash there and just are willing to play with the chance for long enough, okay, I have to turn on the massage here. And as long as you're willing to play with chance long enough and you don't accidentally blow the whole thing, you can effectively not have to worry about money all game. As you can see, realistically, that maybe took during the one cutscene in this whole thing where I did the whole chance stuff, and that was maybe all of somewhere between 5 to 10 minutes, and then I maxed out my cash effectively, for lack of a better term there. On one hand, it gives you an opportunity to basically get a bunch of stuff that you wouldn't have the chance to get to normally, because of just how long it would take to beat up all the gangs necessary to build up all that funds, but because of stuff like the chance house, money really has no real value here. And when the fact that, with the exception of some equipable items there, oh, actually, this is one of those special encounters I was talking about earlier. For those that don't recognize immediately, Juki is the equivalent of Slick. And in this case, he actually asked to join up, and I decided to say yes at this point, although I'm not going to honestly use him there. I can't recall exactly what the sequence is if you say no the first time around. I know for a fact, due to some story-related elements, he's one of the characters that can leave later on, and he'll be for a prominent reason, which I'm not going to say too much about. But it's Slick, so you kind of know what to expect there. But in terms of how it goes, when you happen to have, if you use Slick as the playable character though, as your partner, it kind of negates certain events, but it also gives you a partner that has the I don't know what the heck the short or the proper name in this particular game is, like bumpin' cart or something like that. It's so truncated, you can't tell what the proper word is. But if you go by the North American name, they refer to it as the Slick Trick. And that's his general set of equipment that he starts off with, or his general technique. Mind you, the Slick Trick needs some startup time in order to get real useful. And of course, you want to have him build up his throw in order to make the most use of it and get the most damage. Since under the right circumstances, it can do like triple damage for each item that, or triple digit damage for every item that hits an opponent. But all his other stats are actually average or pretty low at best. So if you work with Juki as your ally there, you really want to use some of the equipment in order to build him up there and get him some reasonable stats for everything else. And if you can get him some other techniques too that are more applicable for regular fighting, do so, and do so quickly. In fact, that probably applies to a lot of your extra playable allies as you get there. Although most start off at least with an okay extra technique to go along with them. They all come with just one technique for the most part. But actually no, correction, there's one exception, one partner, your very first partner, Sue, which comes with a terrible technique, Big Bang. 9 times, or I'd say 99 times out of 100 is generally useless. But with everyone else, they start out with something that's workable, and as long as you get them some extra techniques to go with it, they tend to fare pretty well. In Ricky's case, he comes with the Mach Punch to go along with Kuno's Mach Kick, and an okay set of stats. Some of the later characters come with some of their trademark. I think Bunzo comes with the trademark Headbutt, which is actually a pretty good running attack if you happen to get a chance to get it for yourself later on. I think one of the secret houses happen to sell it. And everyone else has something that's really fairly useful, and the applicable stat for that special is at least at an okay or okay percentage, if not particularly good. And if you happen to have any kind of stat boosts applied to your default partner item set, it can get really good in a hurry. There's a lot of cases where, depending on early runs, who I had as my partner there, I maxed out Kick just as a general thing there. And I had one of my partners that had a lot of uses of kick-based specials, and they were basically just kicking people's asses left and right, just by using something that they use as a default move, or the default technique. Actually, now I'm thinking about wait a second, just quickly reviewing some of the footage. Jinpa actually said something new that time after I beat him up. Talked about 2 dudes, and it kind of gives you an idea of who you have to go back for next, and suddenly on the map there's a new pair of enemies that are hanging around somewhere, so I believe it's time for a rematch with, based on the color scheme, Ikki and Roku at this point. Or Ichi and Roku, I should say. Yep, there's the light yellow gang there again, so there's at least one more matchup there. I guess it's something they recall what they did for RCR, where you based their equivalent, which I can't remember the proper Japanese name, but basically Benny and Clyde. You got a chance to face them at least on 2 separate occasions, and if you were willing to second them, you could kind of fight them on that second time around on again and again if you really wanted to milk them for extra coins. Although now that I think about RCRX, they actually had a special story cutscene if you did it too many times. And just generally there's a bit of a callback to the rematch at this point of the story. Although I can tell you for a fact, much like the original, they're not going to be the twins you're going to be looking for. Unfortunately for the gang here, they're not really any much tougher than they were the first time around. I think their health points are just the same, and the only thing that kind of makes this fight drag out a bit more than it should is just the unfortunate selection of terrain, being the extra traction area with all this red mud. Almost makes me wish I kind of figure out which of the secret houses had the appropriate set of boots in order to get around this whole thing so I could move more normally. I'm gonna have to I feel for Tomei there. I can see how this sucks. It's like you get a chance to get a rematch, and it's like, this time we're gonna do better, and as it turns out, we're actually getting our asses kicked worse than we did the first time. Go figure. Really, although if you kind of feel bad for them, you really have to feel bad for the frat boys in this game. who, as the default regenerating gang, they just exist for you to beat up for stat building, and that's their only purpose in life here. They have no chance of winning after maybe the first bit of the story there. They just exist to be crushed at all times. At best, they maybe give them a bit more in terms of hit points, just so it helps occupy a bit more time, but they're generally harmless as the story goes on here, to the point where really you're just grinding them for extra stats. It's really not fair to them, if anyone. Alright, now with that done, now we have Ichi and Roku giving the exact same introduction as before. You would have thought that they would have actually had them say something new this time, but I guess not. And at this point, it's basically saying what game as it was the first time. They do a bit of damage here because they are bosses after all, but generally, once you beat one of them up, they're basically screwed there. And really, they're just screwed as a whole because this time now they're getting beat up with 150 plus hits every time. And there you go, get hit by one of your own attacks there. And one down. May be bad, but we don't hurt women. Revealing that yes, they are not in fact the ones you're looking for. And you're just beating them up again for no good reason because Jinpa can't be specific as to what pair you're supposed to be looking for. Alright, moving on. Now we have this dark red burgundy gang in order to start looking for as the next part of the story progression. As we continue to look for exactly who the pair of individuals we're really looking for. Alright, at this point I've been doing a bit of leveling, so let's see. Okay, punch and kick are now officially maxed out. I can probably start moving towards another stat in a moment. Don't think I need an immediate level just yet, but soon enough we'll be able to go certain. Okay, nearly got thrown off the stage there. Not a good thing to Pally there. And just to kind of bring it out here, something you didn't see in the original title. Notice how the inclines have various levels there. It's not like the same angle each time. There's actually multiple angles to work with, and it's something that pops up multiple times throughout the game. It's just an example of some things that were just gently improved in this title over the last one. Although, as an unfortunate side effect, the AI doesn't exactly know how to navigate all this stuff all too well. So you'll have cases where your partner kind of gets stuck in between certain areas, and you kind of just have to scroll off and let them catch up, or just make your way to a more appropriate spot so you can either help your ally or beat up the next opponent, as they can get equally stuck that way too. You have to be careful because there's one of the hidden entrances at this point. Don't want to scroll up too much and scroll off to the right there because that's where exactly the door is. And yeah, let's head back to the water. At this point, I think it's a few gang members down. Should be approaching the boss entry point pretty soon. We're getting kind of a mid to late point at this point, so I'm not exactly sure who would be showing up as a boss. Went through most of the notable ones I could think of at this point, or at least that I could think of the RCR equivalents of. So it's actually a pretty good question as to who's up next. On top of discovering who exactly your main opponents are, which will be showing up really end game at this point. There's maybe only one or two really notable bosses left. And admittedly, of those bosses, there's only one that a really big challenge at this point because of how I've been running Kuno here and building up his character, and we haven't come across him yet. So let's see exactly. There's got to be only like one or two gang members left. This should be done fairly soon. 173. Ouch, that has to hurt. And to imagine this gang actually has a higher level of defense than the earlier gangs have. It's just my stats are built up that much at this point. I can't recall if that's an actual thing like a bamboo cane or something, or if that's actually supposed to be a knife. It's kind of hard to tell at this point. Of course, without something like mock weapons are still fairly useless to me, and with honestly, how low my weapon stat is, it wouldn't be doing me too much good anyway, unless it was like a big bludgeoning tool like a stone or something like that, where just because of its nature, it does a lot of damage. So, okay, Ricky, if you don't... Was that a drill using the weapon? I'm not sure if that adds any damage, but that would have probably hurt if it actually hit. Okay, let's see who the... Oh... remember that hard boss I was just talking about? This is that boss. While he doesn't have too much in terms of regular attacks on his own, it's his technique that is gonna make him a bit of a pain. And oh, he just put it into play. As you notice, he just turned into Kuno himself. What this boss particularly does is has an attack or technique called Reflect. And in this case, I'm not sure if it copies over Kuno's stats as well, but unfortunately what Reflect does is he copies over all of Kuno's, or all of the copied characters' techniques. And considering I've had the Master Belt, it means he has a lot of techniques right now. So, oh, this is not really the best place. I don't want to catch him in closed quarters. Because he can do everything I can do, and he has... Yeah, and he has kicked my ass. And Kuno fell, and we're toast. So yeah, now you can see why someone that has the exact same attacks that I do would cause a lot of difficulty. Because with all the techniques I have, that means he has all the techniques too. Okay, slightly revised strategy. I got completely destroyed because of my lack of defense, so okay, let's beat up the frat boys in order to try to build up defensive stats a bit, and on top of that, I think I might need to get another defensive item or two just to make it so I can survive a bit of a beating, because at that point, that's the one boss with the way this Kuno build is set up that can dish it out as hard as I can, and the problem is, he can take it, I can't. With this current build, I got no defense to speak of there. And my partner got completely eviscerated because of the sheer number of techniques and high damage that the copy Kuno, for lack of a better term, can do. Realistically, if I were on a better terrain that was a bit more open and my partner didn't immediately die, yeah, I could have probably taken him on that last fight, but the minute I got stuck in that one small section where he basically just used my own arsenal of techniques against me, I was completely screwed. There's not much you can do once you're cornered like that, because that's one of the more aggressive AI patterns that this game has. Especially when he has all those techniques at his disposal, he'll just beat you silly. And crap, I didn't mean to do that. I forgot that if you hit anything with the slap attack, like any items or weapons that are on the ground, it can do a stupid amount of damage to your partner too at that point, which is something that definitely comes up. Alright, at this point, Jinba has nothing to say at this point. He's just repeating himself. No new text like last time around, so it's just a matter of accidentally running off stage and canceling that boss fight and screw it. Let's first of all get some other stuff there, just see what's going on, and then go back in order to start another fight with the frat boys. I'm thinking about, since you're already here, let's see. Okay, we have 6 of the possible 8 allies that you can fit at any given point. And yes, let's go out into the blue yonder and pick another fight, for lack of a better term. Actually, no, I think I'm gonna scratch that thought. I didn't want to pick another item. Let's go pick up some extra items of interest. I know I've been skipping over some of the secret houses just because initially I didn't have an immediate use for it, or just forgot what items they had. Okay, so let's check out the... Okay, I know you can make it by doing this jump here, so we're just going to try first. If all else fails, we'll just use the automatic scroll up in a moment. But I know I've literally had myself thrown there before. And let's see what the secret... Okay, these are actually kind of useful there. I have the warp shot from before because of a boss fight, but the headbutt is a pretty good technique, so let's give Kuno a headbutt to work with. And I completely glaze over the fact that Sankey gives you a charm, which in this case boosts your agility by a good 20 points, or because of the extra item I have on there, makes it more like 40. So that'll help a bit. Agility, I believe, in this game improves the kind of the speed that you can move at, which at certain points will be helpful. Okay, let's see this. I know there's a secret house or two in this gym there. Just up this hill. There's one example. Oh wait, was it here? Okay, this hill was another example. And okay, nothing that was really useful. I couldn't remember what was originally there, but now that we know there's nothing useful, let's get out of this region because this is a terrible place to fight in. I don't want to fight anyone in that area. This is also a bad place to fight, but not nearly as bad as all the waterfall because of the sheer number of currents that are going on there at any given time as Kuno gets tossed off screen again. Well, no matter. Let's see. Okay, did I take everything from this technique house already? No, yeah, I already covered this one. Unfortunately, having something like maybe a Game FAQs tab would be pretty handy at this point, just to remind myself exactly what belongs to which different tech shop at this point. For the most part, as you can probably notice, all the secret shops kind of exist on, for the most part, little side-off exits. Not so obvious for the most part. It's basically just one block large entrances that are clearly labeled, like this one. You probably, unless you knew what you were specifically looking for and got knocked down there, you would have never thought in order to click down on that hill to fall off to a secret entrance. In this case, let's see, okay, the wool shirt actually increases strength by 30 by default. In this case, because I have the double up item, I'll actually make it by 60. And for the most part, a lot of these clothing items will, any clothing item of the same type tends to increase certain stats, such as I think all the different pants items of course increase kicks. There's a glove set of items that will increase punches. Most of the shirt items either increase defense or strength in this case. And admittedly, some of the, when you see the actual material that they describe there, you'd think some of the more exotic things would actually strengthen more so just by the default RBE setting of if it's harder to get a hold of a rare material, it's worth more in terms of points. But the wool shirt there actually kind of defies the norm there, because it's a bit more sturdy than the more fancy shirt that you can find elsewhere. Regarding the boot items at this point, a lot of them, on top of having at least a small stat boost, actually have a special effect that will help you negate some issues with certain special types of flooring that come up there, such as there's a version of the boots that end up completely negating all the slipping on ice. There's a version that fixes all the traction issues on the red dirt or mud or whatever it might be, and there's actually a special set of boots that lets you do kind of gravity-defying moon jumps as well, and basically slow your descent if you hold A and B as you're coming down normally. Now, how useful that might be in actual application, I don't know. I don't mess around with the boots too much, to be honest there, although in cases like when dealing with the dirt terrain, if I could find it again, I would definitely use it just because of how irritating that can get. But for the most part, on a run where I'm really just aiming for all techniques that I can possibly get a hold of, like I am for this particular run, I try to stay away from too much equipment if I can help it there. For the most part, once you really build up certain stats enough, you can actually forego the equipment as a whole because it won't be doing you any extra good. You can't go above the 127 limit anyway. So you can just unequip and remove that sort of bits of clothing in order to use the extra slots for other things like health items and extra techniques if you happen to need to purchase a bunch of them off at once and don't use them right away. Alright, here's another one of the secret houses. Let's see. Okay, no, it's just more clothing items. We don't really need that too much right now. At least none of those would add any defense there. Even though we lost half our money with the defeat earlier, we still boarded enough for everything, so we don't need to do any real betting. Basically, what's going on right now is I'm trying to think if there are any extra techniques or anything that I haven't gotten a hold of just yet, or if I can just find any specific defensive-based inventory that I can just add on there, any defensive items, just to at least give a quick boost until I come back for the next gang. Unfortunately, I can't think of anything or where to look right now, so since we have done at least a bit of extra leveling at this point, let's try for a rematch right now. I'm hoping, just because of the weird terrain that's going on in this section, while it will dumbfound my partner for a little bit there, I'm hoping it will also dumb down the enemy AI just enough for me to apply the necessary beating to get away with things. And hopefully I'll be able to get away with my cheap tactics before the AI can get away with using my own cheap tactics against me. Speaking of kind of just showing it in motion there, that's what happens when you use the drill on a grounded opponent. It actually does more damage in this case than a standard punching or kicking sequence, and it's really good because in close quarters here where I can't get away with using the running slap attack too much, because it might accidentally send me off to one of the side exits, it's a good way to do a decent amount of damage without actually moving. Realistically, one of the only ways that I might be able to get away with doing more damage in a rapid fashion is if I happen to have Mach Weapon, which unfortunately I don't think I've learned yet, nor do I remember what hidden shop you can buy it at, or if it's a regular shop. I haven't got that technique yet, is what I'm saying. Is crap. That's one of the unfortunate sections. This particular area, that particular room has a series of different exits there. Some that move you into an entirely different area altogether, or this one that makes you fall into a cavern where you have to kind of navigate the rooms for a bit in order to get back to topside. To make it so I at least haven't wasted my time entirely, let's just beat up on the frat boy here, just maybe get an extra bit of a stat boost or two. Unfortunately, because of the makeup here, it's really easy to accidentally knock someone up and down and off edge, so you have to wait for them to scroll on. All those attacks were for naught, not a single one of them landed, after all. So, I guess in this area, what you really want to do is just cape the opponent just generally as close to the center of the screen as you can get, just so you can beat up them a lot easier. Alright, just matter. Okay, Riggy, you can either knock them back on screen or just kind of make yourself scarce so they start chasing after me again or something like that. Hindsight being 2020, this probably be a good time to pick up a stone or just pick up the cart, or yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the cart. Definitely not a rickshaw, how much I'm sure. Yeah, this is probably going to be a good excuse as any to just pick up a weapon and start trying to build up and learn something like Mach Weapon. I'm not sure exactly. God, I must have heard a bit. And now my partner is being an idiot again. Yeah, but basically, in order to learn something like Mach Punch or Mach Kick, if you don't already have it by default, which in this case you really do have it by default, but to learn things like Mach Punch and Mach Weapon, you literally just use that attack sequence again and again and again until the game officially decides to give it to you. I'm not sure what the exact number of times is, but you can just generally learn it by just repetition of times. Suddenly your character will decide or come to the conclusion, hey, if I can do this suddenly really fast now, I can hit them multiple times at just instead of the one slow swing. And if you have certain weapons like the rock or whatever, and have something like Mach Weapon handy, you can do, honestly, a really stupid amount of damage in a short time, and just really beat the hell out of your grounded opponents. Now think about it in hindsight. You know what this general tunnel setup there, these underground caverns remind me of? One of the later levels in the NES port for Double Dragon. It had the same kind of color-changing pattern thing going on there, and as we ride around in this barrel, which apparently can run around in too, as well as do some floating in. It basically, that one Cameron section had the same general color setup. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the tiles actually got reused from Double Dragon for the NES, or used from that game, I should say. Let's get out of the barrel, and alright, it's time to refine that gang. And although the hills make it a bit harder for the AI partner to work around with, at least in this one there aren't as many possible accidental outs. So it's time to hopefully abuse the terrain, and let's get the rematch underway as soon as we get by a certain number of gang members. At this point, defense and strength are maxed out, so I guess it wasn't too low after all. And now, let's see. Alright, let's go back there again. Figure out what. Ow! I didn't realize how low my Vitality and Stamina were right now. I can possibly get away with it for this fight there, since I have a high enough defense stat to go along with. But for the stamina there, I have a 91, so it was much lower than I thought it was. I have 91 of a possible 255 there, so it's actually really low. I think it might be considered 1/3 or something like that. I don't want to do the math for that right now, but it's still, I could do much better than that is what I'm saying. And my partner is down, so well, this gang takes a beating pretty easy, and I do have the health regenerating item on there, or equipment on there. It's still not a generally good idea to let myself get beat up too much, because at this point, because I don't have too much health, even with a higher defense stat, you can still get beat up pretty badly at this point, especially with the ability to gang up on you. The one bright side is because I don't have a partner right now, there's no lag going on, so I can see and move exactly as I wanted to at any given moment. Also, that running slap attack does a stupid amount of damage still. And between that and the tornado kick, it usually wipes out most of my opposition. In case I haven't mentioned already, if you haven't done tornado kick handy on your own gameplay in this particular title, you can actually start off the tornado at any given point within your jump, or within a neutral jump. If you're doing a running jump and have some other techniques, so basically cancel that and do the special version of it instead. But if you start off the tornado kick low enough, you can actually hit grounded opponents, and it's just generally a good way in order to damage grounded opponents a lot if you don't have a really high punch or kick stat for the default hits. At this point, dealing with the gangs is a bit of more road work than anything else. As long as I don't let them hit me too much, I can beat up most people just by sheer attrition there, and by use of some of the large variety of techniques I have at this point. I've probably got at least 80% of the available techniques to the character for the whole game at this particular stage. So it's just a matter of waiting for everyone to get on screen and beat up all these sort of gang members for the gang boss to finally show up. And let's see, can I get my rematch underway now? Or okay, at least one more enemy. Otherwise, they should really be scrolling in 2 at a time at this point. Otherwise, let's see. Mango. What kind of a name is Mango for an enemy? Okay, finally, he's back, and this time he's carrying a weapon, which is actually to his disadvantage. Oh, crap, here we go again. Since I'm the only playable character available, they'll be copying my abilities again, so let's see if we can't keep him on the higher ground for at least a little longer. Okay, that didn't take long. If he's kept on a different level than I am, he tends to not attack. They tend to not attack as much. And here we go again. Okay, this time it's penning a little better. He has no way to corner me this time, and there, he's gone. And there goes the one of the harder bosses of the game, and he sends us to the next direction of who we have to look for next. Sui and Tatsu are better known if you're playing the North American RCR title as Randy and Andy, aka the Dragon Twins. So let's scroll off screen, let's get Ricky back from the dead. And no crap, I didn't even mean to find them so quickly, but here we go with the next boss fight. The gray gang here belong to Sui and Tatsu, so let's beat them up and accidentally hit our own partner there. But let's get through this gang and get the next part of the story progression underway. Much like that previous game before, the gang honestly isn't too tough as long as you can get your hits in first. Although they do quite a bit of damage still at this point if you manage to get hit there. And realistically, I hopefully remember the setup, but I should be building up my vitality and stamina a bit more, so in case of anything I can take I just scroll off screen. Okay, let's begin that boss or that gang fight again. Just an excuse, let's use this excuse to build up some more stats that way by beating up a few more gang members. At this point, Ricky's hypothetically got a decent amount of stamina at this point, although his vitality is still a little on the lower side. And of course, with the exception of a few items there, his stats are nowhere near as jacked in certain sections as mine are. But at least with all the techniques there, he should be able to hold his own for a while. And with no major walls to run into, at least he won't be doing too many stupid things going on at this point. As we beat up more people wearing sunglasses where they don't belong. I think I had some time to think about it. One of the other quirks I found, or one of the few kind of nitpicks I can really say for this game is, in a sense, it feels like they might actually have too many gang members for you to beat up along the way there. Now, I understand it's part due to the fact of how you end up building up your stats is by every 10 gang members you beat up, you end up getting a stat boost of some sort due to set by your growth rate there. But it feels like they just pad the numbers there in order to overcompensate for the amount you can really build up your stats there. They could have just really just had some slightly less amount of gang members and given you stat boosts quicker, or in a quicker fashion there. But here, one, you have to beat up more people, and it just feels like it pads on the in-between parts before you get to the boss fights for the most part. And in another sense there, because of how your opponents end up trying to dodge your AI helper, especially around the edges, you kind of have to lure everyone back to the middle of the screen so you can both continue to attack indiscriminately. Where if they're off to the edges, you can't attack because it'll count as exiting the screen, and your partner basically refuses to attack or finds themselves in a position where they can attack due to the fact the enemy's too far off for them to register any hits, and you're basically playing a game with possum with everybody involved. Like right now, I had to force my partner in order to scroll back on in order to get everything back in motion again. That's probably one of my other quirks that involve how this title and the general helper system work out. They were able to resolve a few of those things in later games like RCRX, although admittedly a number of the issues I just said there, oh, we have the twins now. A number of the issues I just said there still apply in RCRX, to be honest here. Now, in this case, the twins actually got a bit of a demotion because previously they were basically the second last boss fight you can have there. And here, there's still quite a few different bosses to go before you get there. Although this is kind of an opportunity to actually recruit one of the twins for your own side. Now, the trick for which one you end up recruiting depends on who you beat first. One of the brothers will actually end up running away. The second one will basically ask you to finish the fight and finish them off, and the trick is you gotta say no to that. The one that you don't finish off runs off, and once you encounter the next one, or basically whenever your current AI partner gets knocked out, they're gonna be replaced by the brother that you spared, and he'll become your new partner at that point. Alright, here's one of those general random encounters to progress the story there. And Asagi, we've seen that name before. Isn't that the gentleman we met in the intro that we really haven't seen too much of since? Apparently he's not what he seemed to be. And, alright, let's beat up a bit more of the Teal gang, because if I went after the remaining brother, because that's what the other mystery is. Okay, now we've officially recruited Han at this point. We've met all the criteria to get him. Now, as I was saying, if we went after the last brother, we'd be facing him off in the waterfall area, which is an irritating place to fight in because of all the different currents that are going on there. At this point, we have 7 of 8 slots filled in. We don't want to make any switch just yet, just because we have a lot of our stuff allotted to Ricky at this point, so just because I don't feel like building up the techniques for another character. Well, that was unexpected. Alright, another bit of story there. Okoto is the same fiance that was mentioned at the intro as well. Apparently got kidnapped, but imagined to free herself fairly shortly, and now let's see if we can't get someone to scroll off screen. Okay, not yet. Let's keep moving. Need to just kill some time until the enemies decide to scroll to a more hospitable environment. Okay, now we can fight the sort of gangs here. I think I might have enough time in order to beat up the Frauds a bit. Actually, screw it, let's go for the main fight. It isn't the best place to fight them, but as long as don't run too far off screen, we can still take care of them at this point. Ricky still has quite a bit of health right now. It would kind of be amusing if he accidentally got killed during this fight though, and like I said, because of the way the unlock requirement occurs here, as soon as Ricky gets knocked out, the next brother would run right in order to help it, and basically he'd be coming in to help kick his own brother's ass. Just to give you an idea of what you get with either of the brothers in the setup, they have fairly close stats as far as I know. Not an overly large amount of stamina or vitality, but each of them start off with the tornado kick, which due to having slightly elevated starting stats for the kick setup, means they can do quite a bit of damage there. And if you did not mean to do that, we might be getting the next brother shortly enough, because of how Ricky's taking a bit of a beating at this point. But as you're saying, if you have any stat boosting items for the kicks applied to your AI helper, any of the brothers will get quite a bit of a boost right away from how much their tornado kick can do. Alright, let's use an opportunity that got a little bit of stamina back there. Okay, Ricky, if you will move so we can get people back on screen in order to keep fighting them, that would be great. Thank you very much. Yes, that's right, keep running into my various kicks and punches, and slaps for that matter. Ricky, stop hurting yourself. Let's see, okay, well we're already here, might as well. Okay, that one actually adds some more to the vitality. It's not a huge boost, but with the double up it isn't as bad. It's kind of a stopgap measure until I can build up that stat a bit more normally. And I think this should be the last of this particular gang here. Otherwise, there should be one more that would have run onto the screen at this point. Ricky, if you would let him back on screen, please. Or at least kill him off screen, whatever works. Just making so we can proceed here. Yeah, I really hate when the AI does that. It just generally... That's probably part of the reason this run has lasted a bit longer, even though I've done everything I could in order to kind of speed it. Oh, there was one more gang member. Okay, that one really should be the last one then. But as I was saying, even with the fact that I got the map cursor in order to speed up general travel, and all the special items, or the special stat building items and item boosting for stat improving items for any kind of clothing boosts. This game still takes a while just because of having to track down these sort of gangs to the right parts, and how they end up padding things, and just generally how the AI treats the fact you have multiple opponents here in order to work with. I imagine if it was literally just Kuno on his own here, everyone would be running on screen in a fairly timely fashion, and I'd be able to beat up everyone a lot faster on my own. And I don't know what Ricky is doing right now, but it probably is running into a wall like an idiot. Otherwise, we'd see him here by now. I would think there's actually a pretty good chance that Ricky will end up killing himself just by constantly running into a wall. And my opponent is no difference because he just ran into a wall trying to get at Ricky. There's no one there, Ricky. Okay, there. How many people are in this game? I really just wanted to have it done by now. As Ricky is trying to face off with the pillar, and the pillar is winning. God damn it, Ricky, get your shit together here. Come on, man. Seriously. There's no one there, Ricky. Why are you running into... Case in point, your AI partner is stupid. I think we're going to be seeing the next brother really soon at this point. I think it will actually pop during this fight. Just because Ricky's shenanigans here. Actually, let's see, just for a sake of chance. Can I keep him alive in this fight despite his own stupidity? Let's see how long that lasts. Can Ricky let me finish the fight in order to get to the boss fight? That's the real important question here. I wonder if it's possible to actually turn off the AI help altogether here. Okay, at this point, Ricky's standing still. That means the boss is in. He managed to avoid the wall. Now, if we see Satsu, that means it's Sui that I unlocked as the playable character. Once Ricky goes down. I'm not sure, since I never really boosted Ricky's throw, how he manages to throw anyone so straight and for such a long distance, to be honest. And down goes Ricky. Here comes Sui. If it wasn't the fact he was being covered up by a bunch of just general fight text there, Sui would have a special message for asking to help you, or asking to join you, and Tatsu died completely off screen. We're not going to be playing with Sui though, although his tornado kick does a decent amount of damage. Let's be honest here. We're going to... Okay, Saji has disappeared, aka the shifty guy has vanished. And that's the next part of the plot here. There's also someone else that's missing at this point, although it doesn't mention it straight away. Sue is not on that list last I checked, and it's becoming more apparent why shortly on. First, Ricky's dead. He doesn't look dead, but he's got no health or anything to him, so let's get him at least some vitality here. It's possible to rebuild his stamina by finding certain food items that you can actually store in your item inventory, or your general inventory, and of course give them over to your AI helper in order to bring them back up to some decent health, but I can't remember which stores actually sell that damn thing. Okay, no, it's none of these items. These are all automatic consumption, so that's no good. Let's see, no. Not in this area either. Realistically, it might be easier just to set up a fight sequence where I can just let Ricky get killed, scroll off, and then scroll back on, so he'll come back on with full health. But, let's see if I can't find any of the appropriate food items here, or at least see if I'm missing any tech. That would be interesting here. No, got the end attack quite a bit ago. Let's see. Yeah, let's screw it. Let's just use the tonics in order to at least build vitality, and that way, when he gets knocked down, which will happen probably fairly shortly, at least he'll have something to get back up with. At this point of the story, really, we figured out that there was a traitor among us, possibly more than one, really, with the way it was working there, and how the story is going to go down. We took care of the would-be kidnappers, although they clearly weren't doing that good of a job because the kidnappee managed to escape on her own, really, in order to tell us what's going on there. And believe it or not, we're basically nearing the end game right now. There's I'd say maybe 3 or so major boss fights. No, we don't need the bed. We have all the money we need for the rest of the game and then some. And yeah, aside from doing some more stat grinding where possible in order to just build up things as necessary, we're pretty much good to go in terms of how the fight's going to go there. Oh, elixirs are pretty good in order to rebuild vitality. I think they max vitality out for the most part, if you happen to be running low, but it won't do too much for Ricky's stamina right now, which is still upgus. So might as well move to the next boss fight. Okay, not this part of Soraya, so that means it's gotta be either on the bridge or underneath the bridge. Let's find out where. Okay, no, bottom of the bridge it is. Okay, that made no sense. I was here. Where were they the first time? Okay, no matter. Now we have this dark green gang to go along with as Ricky gets the snot beaten out of him. Really, at this point, if you haven't really done too much in order to max out their various other stats or give too much, or even in this case where you have, because I think I've been remembering to turn on his text at this point, but even then, the AI doesn't take full advantage of all the techniques that you have available all the time. Realistically, Ricky should be able to hold his own a lot better than he does, but it's just the AI being stupid. And if there's a wall, Ricky will always run into it. I shouldn't say Ricky. If there's a wall, your AI helper will always find a way to run into it, even though it makes no damn sense. Really makes you wish you could kind of turn them off sometimes. Why, yes, I meant to do that. No. I forgot, apparently there's a bit of a startup time you need in order to get the running slap, and I'm clearly was starting too close to the wall there. So let's try that again. Let's just do some alternative kicks and get rid of him that way. I don't know. Okay, Ricky actually was punching at something a second ago. Okay, stop rolling so I can hit you. There we go, that's a bit more like it. The problem, the object in the way, so everyone got hit, including people who weren't supposed to get hit, but okay, he didn't fall down, so he'll survive. With no loss of vitality there. Crap, he's gonna roll off screen. No, wait. Oh, wait, no. Undoubtedly roll off. Still no mock, but at least it does. And, okay, oh, well, that's an example of what the dagger special looks like if I'm thinking of the right move. For some reason, that is whiffing against a grounded opponent. Apparently, you can glide with the dagger special, although that's really weird to do. Yeah, let's just stick with the try to punching and kicking the crap out of it. That does a lot more damage overall. The headbutt does a good amount of damage at least. And Ricky is starting to commit suicide again. There's an AI enemy right off screen, and that's why Ricky is running that way and straight into a wall, of course, because he can't differentiate the difference in height. So in order to save my hapless partner, I have to kill him myself. Think that did the job. No, that's a good job. Okay. Okay, at least they're on the same level now, so an actual fight can occur here, and he won't look as stupid. There we go. We got some. Oh, and in case I haven't said it before, I'm pretty sure I have already entered it at this point, but yeah, there's a secret shop in this particular room, just at the bottom area I was just at. You have to actually scroll downward, and there's honestly no clear indicator. You need a guide to get there, or just accidentally scrolling down if you didn't think about it. Oh, and hey, for anyone paying attention, last time we looked, Sue magically disappeared along with Asaji at the last turn, only to turn out to be the big boss all around, or all along. Unfortunately, even as a big boss, he's really useless. His only real special attack would be kind of the slightly better version of the downward punch, but basically it's just the Big Bang. And aside from stunning everyone on screen, it doesn't actually do any damage. So, while in this case, Ricky died because he's stupid, once I get back up, yeah, Sue is done. In this case, you have an option to actually either forgive your brother here and let him back onto your team, or just kill him outright. Since we decided to forgive him, that maxes out the amount of available allies back to 8 as a whole. Basically, that's the max or the most you can get at any time with almost everyone available. You can only get either Tsui or Tatsu, though. You can't have both brothers, and I think since this has been over an hour and 20 minutes at this point, this is pretty much a good time to take a break. Next time, we're gonna finish the end game and just finish the title overall. See y'all next time.